Hi guys, this is going to be the recording for Force of Motion 2.1. And so this is the beginning of chapter 2, so we're kind of diving in a little deeper on force and motion. And so we are going to look into today how a force can change an object's motion and kind of investigate that. The first thing is going to be a warm up and amplify. So for the warm-up, we are given another message from Anna Gonzalez, and so it says, "Thank you for sharing your models and explanations. This information is very helpful. We analyzed the thruster data from the pod and found that the thrusters exerted the same force as in other missions. Since this pod didn't stop, we'll need to look at another cause. The pod has been collecting asteroid samples, and we aren't sure how many it was carrying. Could a difference in the number of asteroid samples explain why the same thruster force caused a different change in velocity? We'd appreciate some help with this." And so you're going to kind of write your thoughts down. And these are some initial thoughts. It's okay if you're wrong. It's just what you think right now. So do you think the number of asteroid samples a pod was carrying could make a difference? So if it was carrying more, could it have had a harder time because the same thruster force was exerted? So just kind of explain your thoughts on that and click hand in. And then the second activity, you are not doing an amplify. Do not do anything in activity 2. Everything that you need to do is going to be outside of it in Canvas here. So there is a lab video here, which I'm not going to play for you because it won't pick up the sound. So you need to watch that lab video. And then there is an assignment in Canvas right here that will show you the questions that you need to answer. There's just a few questions based on what you see in the lab. It's Mr. Livingood kind of reenacting what we would have done with it. And so you're just answering some questions based on what he did. It's pretty straightforward. And then activity 3, we are going to go back to Amplify for that. We are using the simulation to do some investigation. And so scrolling down, we are going to click on the simulation. And there's actually 2 separate little missions that we're going to do. And so looking at the first set of directions here while my simulation is loading, you are going to run 2.1 motionless objects. And then we are going to prepare a force on there. And you can see down here, oops, probably want to delete all my data. You're going to see here that the force that we're exerting is going to be 4 clicks to the right. And we have 4 different objects that we're going to use, each with different mass. And mass is going to be segue to the notebook. I'm going to give you the definition for mass, which you can see I'm on slide 9. You're going to fill in the definition for mass. So mass is the amount of matter that, that makes up an object. So the amount of matter that makes up an object. Make sure you get that definition. And then the other thing is our 2 important ideas for this lesson. So for 2.1, the same strength force can affect the velocity of different objects in different ways. And then the velocity of an object can be determined by dividing the distance traveled by the time it took to travel that distance. Okay, so those are what you're adding to your notebook. And so going back to my simulation, you're going to have your mode. So you're going to go to 2.1 motionless objects, and you'll see you have your 4 objects all at different masses. And so you're going to prepare a force, which I'm going to have to move myself here. You're going to have to prepare a force, and each one is going to be 4 clicks to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. So I exerted the same force on all 4 objects, 4 clicks to the right, and I'm going to exert it and see what happens. And we can see that a variety of things have happened. And we're going to actually use our data over here, our Analyze button, to get our data that we fill out in the chart. So I'm going to move myself again. Over here, you can see the change. So we have 8 for object A, 4 for object B, and then 2 for object C, and 1 for object D. So in your Amplify, you're going to notice that what it wants you to collect data on is your change. So those numbers I just read you is what you're typing here. So that is when you click Analyze after you ran it. Okay. And so then I'm going to go back to build mode. And this time I'm going to go, because we are going to our second page here in Amplify. And if you scroll down, you're going to see that we're doing the simulation again, but this time we're selecting 2.1 moving objects. So I'm going to go to my 2.1 moving objects down below here. And what's different about this one is that our objects are already moving, and they're moving in this direction. So they're moving to the left. But we're going to exert force on them to the right. So we are going to run the same tests. We're going to do 4 clicks to the right on each one. So I'm going to prepare my force. And it's so important that you click prepare force because they're moving. So if you try to do the force in action, it will not work. I've tried. So there's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have my 4 clicks to the right on all of those, and I'm going to exert my force. And then I see what happens. And I can see a variety of things have happened. One kept moving, one stopped. And so I'm going to look at my data. So I'm looking, remember, at the change. So object A, 8, object B, 4, object C, 2, and object D, 1. And so you're going to go into down here, and you are going to answer your data and your question and hand in. And then that is it for today.